and they took care of people who the organization may have not been or looked favorable upon. Like most chaplains, their work happens behind the scenes. Their work can't always be quantified on an Excel spreadsheet, a running estimate, or a simple word of the day at the commanding staff. You see, these leaders are being honored today because they gave their life by giving their life jackets to others. But truth be told, they had already given their lives years before. You see, these chaplains, like many other chaplains, sit with soldiers, family members. These soldiers, like many other chaplains, are there to comfort people when their loved ones are lost, through domestic abuse, through loss and pain and depression. The truth be told, that these chaplains resurrect people from the dead by building confidence in them when others have already written them off and sentenced them to a life of detriment. You see, when I think of these soldiers, these leaders, I think of adjectives like duty, honor, selfless service, and integrity. But most of all, I think to the scripture. Since I am a chaplain, I think to the scripture of the Good Samaritan. You know, the scripture says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, some people don't understand what that means. We had a legal-minded fellow in the audience, and he asked Christ, he asked the master, who is my neighbor? You know, Christ didn't say, you know, it was John who lived next door, or Leroy who lived down the street, or Sheila who's in the cubicle next to you. He gave them a parable of three types of leaders. He said, a man went down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among thieves, who hit him in his head, who robbed him of his raiment and left him wounded in the road. You see, the first prototypical leader came by in the right uniform, according to AR 670-1, but he didn't have the right attitude. You see, he had meetings to attend. He had goals he wanted to accomplish. His career was more important than the soldiers. So he walked by on the other side. The second leader he saw, the second leader came, and he looked down at the young soldier and he said, shame, shame. I was once in a position like he was. I was once knocked down by the vicissitudes of life. I once knew how difficult it was to be laying in the street. But he said, I pulled myself up. He should too. And he too walked by on the other side. But it was the Good Samaritan, the third prototypical leader, who loved this young soldier and was willing to give his life for the betterment of this soldier and his family. See, he picked the young soldier up, bandaged his head, and poured oil in his wounds. He took him to an innkeeper and he gave him 2 pence, and he said, if this is not enough, I'll pay you on my return. The master asks, who did the neighborly thing? You see, these 4 chaplains understood the aforementioned facts. They understood the mission statement from the boss that was to love your neighbor as yourself. They understood that there was no greater purpose in life than to give your life for those whom you say you love. You see, when that ship was hit, they all realized the ship was going down. When it was time to make a decision, these leaders, these chaplains, did what they always do, and that was to love their neighbor. These men didn't sort through the crowd of people on the Dorchester that day looking for their faith tradition. They wasn't looking for the soldier with the highest PT or the honor graduate from BLC, ILE, or SSC. They were looking to their neighbor. They were looking for soldiers. They didn't ask them for their identification tags. They didn't ask them for their affiliation or denomination. They saw an opportunity to live the call. Live the call that they had been preaching all of their lives. And that was to love their neighbors. You see, the best thing about these leaders is they are examples to us all. They were from different faiths. They may not have had the same theology, but they had the same purpose. They may not have had the same faith, but they had the same faithfulness. They may not have had the same denomination, but they had the same determination and direction. Leaders, what an opportunity you have to affect human lives. What an opportunity you have to give life to human beings every day by giving them a life vest of a kind word, a pat on the back, a that a boy, a that a girl, when you see them gasping for air and choking from the vicissitudes of life. What an opportunity you have to change people's lives with your experience, with your resources. How do I know this? Do I speak from theory because I'm a chaplain? No. I know this because it was a leader who saved my life. It was a leader who wrapped his hands, his arms around a young private first class when the paperwork was already signed for me to be chaptered out of the Army. It was a leader who begged my commander to let him take on the assignment of resurrecting the battalion dirtbag. You see, this leader gave me a life jacket when I was drowning. This leader put his sterling reputation on the line for a young private first class to lift me up until I found my purpose. This leader stood me up long enough so I could find direction in life. What is my purpose? My purpose is synonymous with those four chaplains, and that is to give my life to everybody, every soul that I meet, to give them a life jacket, to help them out when they're going through their tough times, and not leave them on the side of the road, to put oil in their wounds. I was sitting, in conclusion, I want to tell you this story because I think it's pertinent to what we're talking about here today. I was sitting on my 109 howitzer and I was crying. I wasn't really crying because I'm too big and tough to cry, Commander. But I was sitting on my 109 howitzer and I was crying because my commander wouldn't let me go to service. And I was thinking to myself, I love this organization, but the leadership is going to push me out. And I see off in the distance this person. He is laughing and clowning. He has a little candy bag like Little Red Riding Hood. And I say to myself, God, if you have any mercy, if you are the loving, kind God that you are, please don't send the chaplain over here. I can't take it today. I'm actually going to go crazy if the chaplain comes over here. The chaplain came over to me, a young PFC who was the